and welcome to this special presentation of Rajya Sabha Television. The idea of nation state has been debated for quite some time. What exactly is the idea of nation state, the concept of nation state, and what challenges this particular concept? This seems to be a raging debate at several forums. What lies ahead as far as the concept of nation state is concerned, and what might be the future for those particular theories which challenge this particular concept? Today, for a discussion on this, we have with us a distinguished panel of guests. On my left, we have Mr. Prem Shankar Jha, senior journalist. Then we have Mr. Vivek Karju, former ambassador, diplomat. Then we have Mr. Ashok Tandon, another senior journalist, and Professor Salil Misra, a historian and a professor of history at the Ambedkar University, Delhi. Let me begin with you, Prem Shankar Ji. As I was saying, the definition of nation state is something which cannot be pinpointed to as to this particular defines nation state, or sometimes there are several people who are not even comfortable with the idea of nation state. What exactly, or in which terms specifically, would you define this particular concept? Is it still relevant in our ages right now?
I think it's very relevant, because without understanding the nation state, you will not understand what's happening to it, and therefore what is happening to the world around us. The nation state is an amalgam of two ideas: the idea of the state as such, and the idea of the nation. The nation is a culture, essentially a cultural identity. It's language, history, then your religion, and your mainly language, history, and religion would together, would race, if you like, sometimes. But this amalgam it creates over a period of time a culture, a way of looking at things. Now, before 200 years, say 250 years ago, there was no concept of the nation state. There were states, all of them had many, many nations in them. The nations themselves were rather small. There were great diversity existed in the world, of languages, of dress, of food. You could see that from all the historical, films we see today. The two were amalgamated during the era of capitalism, particularly industrial capitalism, because the scale of production of industrial capitalism was large and covered large areas, including many, many national groupings, like ethno-nations as they're called. Now, the industrial state, this kind of industrially driven state, therefore had to, because of the need to protect its markets, drew hard boundaries. The hard boundaries tended to cut across these nationalities. Therefore, in time, people moved either voluntarily or forcibly to be with their co-nationalists to the other side. And this is how the nation state was created. Towards the end, in the First and Second World Wars, it was created forcibly. Now, that nation state itself is now disappearing. Another half a minute, and I'll tell you, and we can carry on. It's going, again, because of economic forces. Globalization is the expansion of capitalism to a point where the minimum scale of production for efficiency cannot be contained within even a very large nation state, but must in fact go to create a larger market of many states, or maybe even the whole world.
Okay.
Now, for that kind of capitalism to flourish, the barriers between nation states had to come down. First, the economic barriers came down. As you've seen, all kinds of tariff barriers and things have been removed. Financial movement barriers have been removed. We are all integrating economically, and by and large peacefully, and that's a kind of a weakening of the nation state.
So you're saying that globalization is what has sort of weakened the entire concept of nation state which was there.
It has made the nation state as such, which was a product of national level industrial capitalism, redundant, because it stands in the way of the creation of a larger market.
Let's bring in Mr. Karju here. So you have had an experience of dealing with several states. You've been a diplomat, you've been an ambassador as well. Do you agree with this concept of nation state and the globalization being one of the reasons that the barriers have come down? And in some term or the other, as Mr. Jha was saying, that globalization is also responsible for creation of the nation state as an entity.
As a professional diplomat, my focus has always been on the cohesiveness of a state and its ability to bring power to bear on the international state system for the objectives it has set out for itself. Now, the cohesiveness of a state, as Mr. Jha so well put it, are derived over the last 250 or 300 years out of the concept of a nation. And the assumption was that a state which is built around the idea of nationhood will be a cohesive state and a more purposeful state in international
context.
Affairs. Yes, I think that the whole idea of us, and linked with this was the idea of state sovereignty, that states are sovereign. And they can, and sovereignty, as we know, is we can do what we like within our national territory, and we can also, we are not really restrained when we act in the international system, provided we have the power to back it. Now, I think these ideas have been under a challenge for a variety of reasons, including economic, over the past, say, 6 or 7 decades especially, though the challenge had become much earlier, but now it's more severe. And states, because of the differential in power system, some states are able to maintain the concept of sovereignty to a fuller degree. Others are now realizing that they have to share these ideas. And the process of globalization, as it has taken place over the last 2 or 3 decades, beginning with the digital age, is, I think, posing a most severe challenge to these ideas of a cohesive nation state which is an independent actor.
Independent entity. Exactly the point which I wanted to put across to Ashok ji, as Mr. Karju put across, that since the advent of the digital economy, or as we say, the e-commerce companies, or the expense of the internet and the more usage of it, do you agree with Mr. Karju that has been a sort of propelled this entire concept of weakening of borders, weakening of territorial integrities, because e-commerce entities like e-commerce companies, they transcend borders. If I have a e-commerce company, I need not be based in India if I have to sell my stuff in India. So there are rules and regulations now being framed, and some which have already been framed. But do you also agree with the fact that the advent of digital age has sort of fueled this process a little more, made it a little more faster?
See, this is not the only time when there is a threat to this concept. In fact, this concept is a product of the modern political philosophy which emanated from the West. And the West hegemony through either economic domination prior to the World War and later also was first challenged by the communist philosophy. And they said that the state will wither away if our philosophy transacts borders. But through these ages, first, the communist philosophy has not been able to be implemented with the state withering away. And the West also, through its economic domination, global hegemony, has also not been able to succeed to a large extent. Now, coming back to your point, see, India is a different country. And therefore, when we apply all these yardsticks on India, my answer will be no, it has not been able to do it, because we have weathered so many storms, whether it was the communist philosophy or whether it was the capitalist philosophy of the West, domination through economic domination or otherwise. And now coming back to globalization in India, which started practically from 1991 onwards, there were apprehensions that what will happen to Indian nation state. But we have weathered that storm also, and now the latest threat which you are trying to debate is the e-commerce companies, or I will even go to the extent of the multinational companies which are not e-commerce.
The internet phenomena.
Internet phenomena as well. All these things, India has an inherent strength to withstand all such challenges and still retain its core philosophy, its value system, and whatever we have inherited thousands of years ago. We have weathered all these storms, and therefore I am not really worried, because globalization has not been able to affect. In fact, on the contrary, the issue now is in some of the Western countries during the election, even American, German and British election, about the India emerging as a superpower and taking advantage of all the facilities which globalization is providing, or even the internet is providing, or even the computer is providing, that Indians are now dominating. And the Indian companies are buying assets abroad, and we are becoming an issue that India and China will come and dominate our market. So therefore, I think we in India have nothing to worry about.
Okay,
we should not be worried about these threats. We should be taking advantage of these technological revolution and try to survive and also expand in terms of our inherent strengths, like computer. When computer was introduced in India, there was a lot of apprehension.
Yeah, there were questions being asked.
Yeah, now our IT companies are, in fact, minting a lot of foreign exchange.
Going strides. That, I must say, is a very optimistic viewpoint, Mr. Tandon. Let's bring in Professor Misra out here. Professor Misra, you're a historian, you're a professor of history at Ambedkar University. Whatever Mr. Tandon said, and he, if I sum that up, he said that India has withstood several such challenges, though this time around the challenge is in a different form in terms of the entire internet phenomena or e-commerce or the social media thing. But do you agree with this point that this is not that difficult a challenge which the India as a nation state will not be able to take on or withstand?
Well, let me make 2 points. First is a point which applies specifically to India, the kind of challenges for India. And second is the kind of challenges which are there to the nation state system, which Mr. Jha was referring to.
Okay.
Let me take it up at both the levels.
Okay.
First, the generic point about nation state.
Yeah.
It is absolutely true that a large number of technological changes, economic expansion, capitalism, they have created a kind of a challenge for the nation state system, because there are linkages across boundaries and so on. So it seems that the sovereignty of the nation state systems will be compromised. But what has happened is that these nation state systems, they are also very smart. They keep reinventing themselves. They keep meeting the new challenges. They reinvent themselves. They compromise on certain areas with social media, with many new technologies. They also incorporate and they also grow very strong. So modern nation states are also very coercive. They are very interventionist. Internally, they are also much more accountable to the big powers. Whether it's India or Pakistan, they sometimes tend to look towards the superpowers and look for a nod of approval and so on. So nation states are constantly reinventing themselves, sometimes successfully, sometimes not quite so.
Okay, well,
coming to India, I broadly agree that India has over the last 2 centuries or so done rather well in coping with the kind of challenges which have emerged from the West or from the developed sectors. We fought an extremely successful and inspiring battle against colonialism. This was a model for all the colonies of the world about how to adopt modernity, but how at the same time be opposed to imperialism, to colonialism, and yet reason, rationalism, all the positive values of modernity, how to incorporate it. We did not go back to medievalism. We remained modern and we reinvented modernity. We were opposed to capitalism, domination, imperialism, colonialism, and yet
so
we incorporated.
We've been there, we've done that, that's fine. But what about this particular concept? Do you agree that we will be able to withstand the, quote unquote, onslaught of the internet phenomena?
Depending on what the question is. If the question is India going to emerge as superpower in the next 20 or 30 years? The answer is no.
Okay.
But the question is India going to be in the race? Is India going to meet the challenges? Is India going to reinvent itself? Answer is yes. You see, let's not talk about some essential India of 3,000 years. India is not an essential society.
Okay.
India is a vibrant, growing society, constantly growing, constantly
developing as well.
Constantly adapting, incorporating, responding, taking the challenges. So it's a very, very vibrant society, and those experiences will certainly come in very, very handy when Indian society has to cope up with the new challenges.
Let me bring in Mr. Kaju on the issue of the social media. Now that we are veering towards that particular part of the debate, you've been, as far as your profession is concerned, you would also have been a little, mindful of the fact how the social media and the social media platforms played a very important role in several Arab uprisings, revolutions in Egypt, revolutions in other countries. And if you look at the other aspect of the social media, we have seen how this has impacted elections in democratic countries like India and United States. Do you believe this is for positive? Do you believe that this is something which will only bring positive change, or even if it carries on a little bit of a negative idea, that can be tackled?
Look, all media in the context of politics is a means of mobilization. And because of technological change, the speed and ambit of mobilization has been growing. The social media, again, because of technological aspects, has now a potency for mobilization, both negative and positive, which is unprecedented in history. So therefore, it can impact, and as it has impacted, say, elections. Today, political leaders are successful if they are able to understand the workings of the social media and use them to their advantage.
To their benefits.
For example, again, as a professional diplomat, the idea of a head of government tweeting is very new. Governments only, in my experience,
He used to put out information through different channels.
put out information through regular channels.
And official channels.
And official channels through spokespersons, designated spokespersons. And it was unthinkable that there will be messages sent out by heads of government or heads of state through these 140 characters. But that's now becoming the norm. It has become the norm. And therefore, it can bring about immediate mobilization. And that can be positive. But at the same time, there are actors in the political system and the social system and the economic system which can use the same thing, the same means, to create havoc. And therefore, I think governments are now becoming conscious that they need to adopt systems. And perhaps cooperatively in the international sort of context, to be able to staunch the negatives as rapidly as possible. Otherwise, there can be absolute mayhem.
Or put in checks and balances. Mr. Jha, what's your take on this? Do you believe that the concept of nation state, which we begin with this particular discussion with you, will it be able to withstand these quickly transforming platforms, the social media platforms, the changes in technology, the way it is being used in politics, or in other terms, as Mr. Kaju was saying, the negative aspect of it is as strong as the positive aspect?
The media, whether it's social media or they're print media or it's television media, they're not completely separate. They're part of one continuum. And all of them are capable of conveying information very well and very responsibly, but also very irresponsibly. The problem we face today is that it is not often possible to distinguish between the responsible and the irresponsible. And I regret to say also that more and more world leaders are beginning to use the social media irresponsibly. They're doing it because, first of all, in a sense, a medium like the Twitter, which puts you down to 140 characters, practically invites you to make a statement that can be rebutted somewhere else. Because there is absolutely no nuancing, no understanding that, look, I may be wanting to appeal to this group, but that doesn't mean that I necessarily want to alienate every other group. That kind of thing cannot be done. The real danger in the media today is anonymity. Anyone can tweet anything to anyone, reply to anyone. The kind of responses I sometimes get to my articles, and now, mind you, increasingly all social media, respectable newspapers have got filters in place. You don't even see them anymore. But they are truly ugly. If you look at the kind of very vigorous social media discourse that takes place in Kashmir, you find that it ranges from the highly responsible to the totally crazy.
Totally crazy.
Now, I think that we will take time to be able to understand and discriminate between these. We do need some state oversight. It should be minimal, but it should not be non-existent. I think we need new agencies like the Press Council was supposed to have been. We need, I think, a media council. We need a social media council, which is made up of people from the society itself.
To ensure that checks and balances are
To say
put in place.
thus far and no further. But having said that, see, in the end, what are the social media? They're only words. They're ideas. The changes that are taking place today, the threats that come to what you call it, the nation state or the multinational state. India is not a nation state. India is a state with many, many nations in it, who in fact are bound together by a cultural substratum which is mainly Hindu, but which also has strong elements of the best of Islam, the best of Christianity, Buddhism, Sikhism. I think it's a fantastic country. You know, this is a multinational state to end all multinational states, to tell you the truth. You know, and therefore to me that this diversity is very important to preserve. And here I come back to what the danger of the social media. Social media, in simplifying, they also risk destroying this diversity and this understanding, this rich understanding of ourselves.
Let me come to the economic part and let me go to Mr. Tandon, since you pointed out in your first response about how globalization, although Mr. Jha also spoke about it, as to how globalization has weakened the barriers, but India has withstood those challenges as well. Do you also believe that in terms of economy, platforms, the e-commerce platforms now, which do not conform to or do not have to conform to the territorial integrity as we, sort of define in terms of nation state or multi-nation state, do you believe that that is also one very important aspect apart from the social media or what is written there or the the formation of the public opinion, the way economic activities are now being carried forward, that is also one aspect which needs to be taken care of?
See, the thing is, you can't stop any activity in the modern context. When multinational companies come to India to make money, have economic influence, we can't simply criticize and attack them and doing nothing. So nothing stops India from doing the same thing. As I said earlier, our multinational companies are also going out abroad and buying companies. So similarly, when the e-commerce has come in, I see it again as sort of a Western attempt to influence the developing countries like India in an economic way. But I will not simply attack them and condemn them, but I would say that we will face it. And our own companies, why can't have e-commerce? So what stops Indian multinationals? We are big companies. So therefore, there is nothing to worry about. So I will not concede that we have the inherent strength to withstand all such onslaughts, whether they come from the West or from the any other quarter.
There brings in a point, and I would like to bring in Mr. Kaju here. Why not then in that context, Mr. Kaju, have a approach just like the Chinese have, that we need your funds, but we don't need your companies?
I was thinking of that. I think the Chinese example is very apt, because the Chinese have been able to put up barriers to the entry of commodities and manufactures, which they don't want. For example, Indian pharmaceuticals. It's well known that we have strengths here, but the Chinese have been able to ensure that they don't have a level playing field. So we'll have to be very careful about these e-platforms, which we allow entry, to able to give our own companies a level playing field. We don't need to be diffident. I think we have inherent strengths, but that does not mean that we don't exercise vigilance in these on these issues.
And
we've got to be careful here. Otherwise, we well might lose out in this race.
In this race, Mr. Tandon.
We need to educate the people also. So recently some campaigns have started educating the people through social media also.
Making them aware as well.
Yeah.
Let me bring in Professor Misra as well. Do you also agree to this point that we can have a approach as Mr. Tandon was saying that we need not be worried about it, but as Mr. Kaju was pointing out that we can have the Chinese approach as well. Okay, fine, let's have the funds. We don't need your companies.
I have something.
Yeah, please. Let's have Professor Misra first.
Yeah, three things very briefly. First, of course, this violation of territorial integrity is not something which is possibly happening about 10 years back or 20 years back. It's a 19th century idea. When modern economy began, all the three attributes of modern economy, capital, labor and technology, they had a remarkable capacity to cut across territories and travel wherever they could. So I think this is a very long process and societies have had to adjust to it.
Okay.
It's a much older thing.
We have suffered a lot because
Yes.
Let's make a quick assessment out here.
Another quick point.
Then we'll have a last word from.
So can I
Mr.
just
Jha.
make?
Yeah,
Can I
please.
just complete the
Yeah,
point?
please.
Therefore, so in the end, of course, we can do the China thing, but the thing is, modern world, we have a large number of nation states, but they are only notionally equal. We live in a very vertical, very unequal modern world. There are weak nation states and there are strong nation states which has a much greater capacity and coercive powers and so on. So in the end, it also depends on how powerful that state is. But let us not underestimate the power and the capacity of nation states. They are capable of doing the kind of checks and the surveillance of the kind that Mr. Kachyu was talking
taking care
about.
of the challenges.
Oh,
ahead.
absolutely.
Yes, Professor,
Yes,
Mr. Jha,
I wanted to say something quite different about e-commerce. E-commerce is actually, you don't forget the benefits that come from it. You don't have to go to 50 different places to buy things. The things come to you. Think of the amount of time that is saved by everybody, the amount of petrol that is saved, the amount of congestion that is saved. If you place orders online, then 40 pieces will be delivered by one truck. Whereas 40 people who buy in a shop will take 40 cars or whatever to go and get it from there.
That's one aspect you're pointing out.
That's one. Secondly, we have very strong, for example, Flipkart. Then there's another one whose name I don't remember. We have very, very strong e-commerce platforms of our own developing and will develop more and more. They can take on the whole world. We've done it in software. We're going to do it again here. The only thing I don't want is premature intervention by the government, which, as in the case of industry 50 years ago, stopped our industrial growth because of ideology, and some kind of a crazy pseudo-nationalist ideology. And we do the same thing here again. No, regulate them. You buy things which are dutiable, duty them at the spot when they arrive in the person's house.
Keep the checks and balances. Do regulate, but do them as and when required and howsoever is required.
And have confidence in ourselves.
And have confidence in ourselves.
Exactly.
Let's bring.
Allama Iqbal said, कोई बात है कि हस्ती मिटती नहीं हमारी.
Well, that's well said, and let's bring an end to this discussion out here only. So, as we witnessed in the last 25 minutes, this particular topic will be debated throughout at different forums, and there will be views and counter views coming in over. And as our guests put it, we will have to have all those views being taken care of and move ahead. We'll bring again different topics and come again to you. Till then, keep watching Rajya Sabha Television.